You will not believe what this double murder suspect did before he was demanded out of his house with his hands in the air, only wearing a towel. He allegedly tried to turn chatgpt into an accomplice for murder in a sick plot as law enforcement searched for two missing University of South Florida students. What he allegedly asked AI before and after the killing.
Two PhD students came to Florida in search of a dream. They had left Bangladesh to study at the University of South Florida. They were young, brilliant, responsible, and building the kind of future their families could be proud of. But in April, both of them vanished. At first, people wondered if maybe they had run away together. Maybe they left campus on purpose. Maybe there was some explanation no one knew yet. But then detectives searched a trash compactor, and what they found changed everything. A pair of glasses, a student ID, a wallet, and clothes covered in blood. From that moment on, this was no longer a missing persons case. It was the beginning of a double murder investigation. And according to investigators, the person responsible may not have been a stranger. It may have been someone much closer. Someone one of the victims lived with. This is the tragic case of Samiul Alam and Naheeda Bristy, and the disturbing investigation into the man accused of killing them. Before we continue, it's important to say this. The suspect has been charged, but he is presumed innocent unless proven guilty in court. The details in this case come from law enforcement statements and reporting on the investigation, and some of those details are deeply disturbing. Samiul Alam was 27 years old. Naheeda Bristy was also 27. Both were from Bangladesh. Both were studying at the University of South Florida. Naheeda was working toward a PhD in chemical engineering. Samiul was studying environmental policy and engineering. These were not people living reckless lives. They were students, researchers, people with goals, families, and futures. Then, on April 17th, police were told that Naheeda was missing. That immediately worried the people who knew her, because she was responsible. She did not just disappear. She did not miss important commitments. Something felt wrong. The next day, April 18th, a friend contacted police about Samiul. He was not answering phone calls. That was also unusual. Now investigators had two missing students, both from Bangladesh, both connected to USF, both gone within the same time frame. At first, there were rumors. Some people thought maybe Samiul and Naheeda were married. Others wondered if they had left together. But detectives quickly started looking at the people closest to them, and one name stood out. Hesham Abu Garbia. He was a former USF student. He was also Samiul's roommate, and according to investigators, he was the last person known to have been with Samiul and Naheeda before they disappeared. Detectives went to Samiul's residence. He lived there with two roommates. One roommate, according to police, was cooperative, but the other roommate, Abu Garbia, allegedly raised concerns. The sheriff later said he was evasive. He would talk about many things. He would even talk about himself. But when detectives asked about Samiul or Naheeda, his answers allegedly became inconsistent. Investigators kept looking around the apartment. And sometimes, in a case like this, it is not only what detectives find that matters, it is what is missing. The doormat was gone. Some pots and pans were missing. On their own, those details may sound small, but to investigators, they mattered. Because when someone is trying to clean up after a violent crime, ordinary household items can become evidence. So detectives made a crucial decision. They went to the apartment complex trash compactor. The trash had not been emptied yet. So they got inside. They searched through it. And then came the first major break. Inside the trash, investigators found Samiul's glasses, his student ID, his wallet, and his clothes. The sheriff said the clothes were extremely bloody. That discovery changed everything. The theory that Samiul and Naheeda had simply run away no longer made sense. Now detectives believed something terrible had happened, and they were in a race against time. Investigators got a search warrant and returned to the apartment. This time, they used forensic technology called Blue Star. Blue Star can reveal traces of blood, even if someone has tried to clean them. And according to the sheriff, the apartment showed alarming signs. Investigators allegedly found evidence of a large pool of blood in the kitchen. Then they saw what appeared to be a blood trail. It continued down the hallway, and it led into Abu Garbia's bedroom. But what they found near the bed was even more haunting. According to the sheriff, the technology revealed what looked like the outline of a human body on the floor, a body curled up in a fetal position. By this point, investigators were focused heavily on the roommate, but physical evidence was only one part of the case. The next part came from a phone. Investigators examined Abu Garbia's phone. At first, they said it looked wiped clean. No text messages, no emails, no GPS data, no search history. But forensic investigators kept digging, and according to the sheriff, they recovered disturbing searches. Searches about whether a knife could penetrate a skull. Searches about whether a neighbor could hear a gunshot. Searches about disposing of a body in a trash bag. And while these searches were allegedly happening, investigators say purchases were also being made. Large black contractor bags, Lysol wipes, duct tape, lighter fluid, a lighter. Some items were allegedly ordered from Amazon, others through DoorDash. But the most disturbing part was the timing. According to investigators, these searches and purchases happened days before the victims went missing. That is why law enforcement described the case as premeditated. Not sudden, not random, but planned. Investigators then turned to the suspect's car. They said the trunk had very little blood, but when they used Blue Star on the passenger side floorboard, they found a large amount of blood. That blood, investigators later said, belonged to Naheeda. Now police believed they had evidence connected to both victims. Samiul's bloody belongings in the trash, blood evidence inside the apartment, and Naheeda's blood allegedly inside the car. But there was still one terrible question. Where were they? The car GPS had reportedly been wiped, but investigators still had the phone data, and through that data, they tracked movements toward Clearwater, then toward the Sandkey area, then to the Howard Franklin Bridge. At one point, according to investigators, location data showed the suspect stopped on the bridge for a short time. So detectives began searching that area, and on the Pinellas County side of the bridge, they saw something. A large black trash bag, sitting alone on the shoulder of the road. Detectives stopped. They walked toward it, and as they got closer, they noticed a smell. A smell investigators recognized as human remains in decomposition. They contacted the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office and the medical examiner. Inside the bag, authorities found human remains. The victim was later identified as Samiul Alam. He had been stabbed multiple times. He had been bound, and he had been left on the side of the road. A young man who came to America to study was found discarded near a highway. But the nightmare wasn't over, because Naheeda Bristy was still missing. And at that point, the suspect wasn't yet in custody. Then police received another disturbing call, this time from Abu Garbia's own family. According to the sheriff, his family reported that he had been acting erratically. They also reported domestic violence. Authorities went to the family home. They believed he was inside. They also learned he had allegedly purchased a firearm from a pawn shop. Later, police determined he had not picked up the gun. But at that moment, they did not know that. So SWAT and negotiators were called in. For hours, they tried to get him to come out peacefully. Eventually, as authorities were preparing to enter the home, he surrendered. He was arrested without incident. But even after the arrest, investigators still had to find Naheeda. The search continued, Deputies and Marine units worked to understand tide patterns. Divers searched the water. Investigators believed she might be somewhere near the area where Samiul had been found. Then, 2 recreational kayakers were out near the Pinellas County side. One of them was fishing when his line got caught on a bag near the mangroves. He moved closer. Then he noticed a terrible smell. The plastic bag appeared to be open, and inside, he saw what looked like a human body. He called law enforcement. Authorities responded and recovered the remains. They believed it was Naheeda, but identification took longer. Because of the condition of the body, fingerprints were not enough. For days, the community waited. Then officials confirmed it. The remains belonged to Naheeda Bristy. They identified her through DNA, dental records, and clothing, seen in campus footage from the last time she was seen. Both victims had now been found. Both families had been notified, and authorities began working to return their bodies to Bangladesh. But one question remains. Why? Why would anyone allegedly kill 2 PhD students? Why Samiul? Why Naheeda? Was there an argument? A grudge? Jealousy? Something investigators have not yet revealed? The sheriff said the investigation is still ongoing. Detectives are still looking through records, still waiting on subpoenas, still searching for motive. Because in a case like this, finding out what happened is only part of the story. The harder question is why it happened at all. Abu Garbia faces several charges.